This week on SV Lynx, welcome to another SV Lynx video. Well, we have discovered a slight problem with the plans in regards to our slide gate.
Right, and what we're checking here is this gate from here to here is wider than the space we have to store it in back here, between here and over there. So we're up here measuring the actual thing one more time, just to make sure that that's true, because it's about 6 inches, which is about this much. And we really don't want it sticking out over here, because as you walk up and want to walk around this corner, it would be sticking out right in the corner where you want to make that turn. And so that really doesn't work for us. So we have to come up with a different solution to solve this problem. And we can't really move the bench back because there's a whole structure up here and everything, and we'd have to modify everything back here to get that done. And that would be a lot of modifications. So what I'm thinking here is that over on this side, the side comes in at an angle over here and reaches this point, and then it comes back over here a few inches, goes in, and then has this angled piece, which is kind of odd anyway. And so what I'm thinking about doing now is extending this out that 4 to 6 inches, depending how much we need, right here. And now the gate only has to be this wide, which fits back into this area back here. Now that does narrow the opening that we have to walk up in here, but as you can see, if it was this narrower between these 2 points right here, this is still very wide for a person to walk up in and out, so I don't think that's going to cause us any issues. And that'll allow the gate to come and insert into a socket here, still be braced by the stair, back of the step that's going to be here, and still be inside this other part right here. And so besides just extending it out, I'm also thinking about just carrying that, instead of angling it back, because this space over here does us no good anyway, carrying it straight out and then over with a nice curve right here. And that becomes a cupboard now that we can use to get a little storage for some fins and masks and other things to go with the scuba tanks and stuff, which are going to be in this locker right here. So we get all our dive gear in that cupboard and over on this one. So that's what we're doing right now. But what we really want to do is get you going on to this week's build video. So we're going to go ahead and jump forward now to Monday, and when we get started, because we're working on the motor mounts and trying to get them ready to put our diesel and electric motor into this hull. It's a Monday morning, and it's June gloom, as we call it around here, which means that we get a sort of marine layer that's gray and cool, which is nice. And down by the beach, of course, it's misting on everything, but up here it's not that wet. So we're dry, but it's cool. So we decided that the first thing we're going to do today while it's cool is tab in some of the bulkheads that we've already glued in. And so we've got a bunch of them prepped up there. We've roughed up the surfaces and vacuumed and alcohol cleaned it and everything. So Brian's here mixing up some thickened epoxy, and I'm going to go apply that to our cove, and then we're going to glass right on top of that. And we've already cut all of the glass and all the peel ply, so we're ready to roll. All right, so we're cutting our motor mounts, and what we need is a 5-degree angle so that this is running downhill 5 degrees. So what we did is we took some plywood and put it in here and used our levels and stuff and tried to get that 5 degree. Then we cut it, put it back in, measured it, and it was wrong, and we just did it 4 or 5 iterations until we got it shaved down to the point where we're getting a 5-degree angle here. Then we used that template to cut our actual western red cedar. And now it's easy. We just put our first board in and get it on its marks right here. Take the second one, put it right next to it, and draw a line right along here. And that will give us the point to cut. And it takes, if you'll notice this is now stair-stepped, it takes the angle of the hull into account. So now we know where to cut this board, and that'll make a flat top that's at 5 degrees. And the boards, as we go, will just keep going up the hull. So we just cut one at a time. So let's go cut this one. I'll show you the next one. Okay, so there's our cut for our second one. So it makes a level top. So now we just bring our third one in. Put it in position again. Draw another line. Right on the marks. 2. This will be number 3. Last one. Okay, let's get this lined up. That looks good. Everybody down. Everybody this way. All right. Here's our block. Now we're going to smooth this out a little bit on top. And all looks pretty good. All right, now we have our block just clamped together for now, so we can test fit it as a unit. This gives us the curvature of the hull, but it's stair step. But this is a very small stair step. We just fill that with thickened epoxy on the bottom. So the next thing to do is, the tops of these are really close, but they're not perfect. And so what we need to do is get these blocks to be perfectly smooth on top. We're just playing now. This is just a test. This doesn't go here.
Do we have a 5 degree?
We do have a 5 degree slope, which is what we were aiming for. 20 inches. That leaves us room to put a double floor in here to reduce the noise and the heat transfer, because this is a bed above here. So we're going to put a double floor in on this. We're going to do a different job right now. We're lucky because our friends right next door are building a house, and they're taking a whole big dump run with a trailer, and we've got all this MDF that we use for the cabin top, for underneath the hulls, all kinds of it just laying around, and this is a perfect chance for us to get rid of it, get it off the lot, because they're doing a dump run tomorrow and they offered to take it. So that's what we're going to do right now. So happy to get rid of all this MDF. There's more, but we're done with MDF for the most part, because we used it to build the canoes, we used it to build the forebeam, and we used it to form the cabin top, but those are all done. And so building the bridge deck doesn't use any MDF because it's a big flat piece. And the only other thing that uses MDF in the whole rest of the build is just some temporary bulkheads that go in while we're putting the decks on, and maybe the side panel. Those go in temporarily and be out really quickly, so and not that many of them. So we're almost done with all the MDF portions of this boat. So I'm happy with that, because that stuff is crap. So we have booked some time over at my friend's woodworking shop to fix the top of these motor mounts. And because of that, and it's a bit of a drive over there for us, we decided that we're going to go ahead and get the electric motor side over on the porthole done as well, so that we can take all 4 of the motor mount blocks over there to get planed. So today, since we're going over there tomorrow, today we're going to get the electric side done, and we'll show you a little bit about how that one works. It's quite a bit different in where it's located from the diesel engine. I'm in here working on the motor mount for just the electric motor, and this thing looks really tiny because it is. Remember that this electric motor is just a really small piece that goes right here, and so it doesn't need a huge motor mount like a diesel does. In fact, it's only 150 pounds for the electric motor, so it's not really even all that heavy. But we're still building it the same way, it's just a lot smaller. And so I'm onto the 4th board right now. Now, we're going to cut this one off. Well, this involves a lot of climbing inside and outside the boat because we like to test every one before we cut the next ones to make sure that the last one is right and it's perfect. So now we'll move on. Actually, hand me number 5. Okay, number 5.
Cut the tail off.
And we're using the offcuts from our other side of the boat to save some wood here because these are so much smaller. So what I'm going to do here is have Brian trim this off while I wait. I'll just give him a mark. And now I'll wait. Now, one thing while we're waiting, where I'm sitting right now is where we're going to put the batteries. So there's going to be a shelf across here, and the batteries will sit too high. That'll give us our 6 batteries. I got to get the other side of this mark now. That's why I paused. Only think of one thing at a time. Well, as I was saying, the batteries sit here, so we're going to have to build a shelf in over here. And the front of the batteries are going to face out, and there's going to be a plexiglass window, but it's going to be a sealed compartment because these batteries don't catch on fire, but they can smoke, and that smoke is toxic and dangerous. And so we're going to vent this. There's going to be a compartment wall here with the batteries in it, separate from the motor. And we're going to have that vented with an automatic fan that will turn on and can also be turned on manually. That way, if the batteries are getting warm in there, we can fire up the fan and cool it down a little bit. But also, if it starts to get too hot and we're not monitoring it, it will kick on the fan automatically. So we are trying to get our engine position over by the starboard hull because that's where it goes, and we had it out of the way over here by the port hull so that we could work and stuff. But now we had to get it over there, and the issue was there enough room to move it and still get the engine hoist out and put the engine hoist back on the other side. And we've got it over to basically center line on the boat right here, so therefore it's going to work. The only other issue we have right now is that it's not lined up. It needs to be more over here, and so that's a different tricky issue that we're working on because we're going to have to jockey it over. So have to work out how we're going to do that. All right, so what we discovered here is our plywood here is going to be in the wrong place, so we have to reposition it. So to do that, we're going to have to lift the engine up, put different blocks under it, reposition the plywood, and Bob's your uncle. What we're trying to do here is get this part of the engine aligned with the edge of that cradle right there, which it just about is. So now our only trick is we need to drop it down right here and still be able to get this plywood out from underneath of it. So we're working on that issue. All right, that's a little more stable. And it's in position. So all we have to do now, once we finish the glassing the motor mounts in and all that good stuff, is extend this way out so we have more height lift, and then we can just pick it up and go straight forward and in. All right, we're back at my friend Ed's woodworking shop, and we've got our motor mounts, both the smaller one for the electric side and the larger one for the diesel. And so the first thing we're going to do is run this through his bandsaw and get the flat surface pretty close, and then we may run it through the planer after that to get it absolutely perfect. But right now we're going to take it through bandsaw, because this edge, as you can see here, isn't 100% flat. So we're going to get it close with the bandsaw, and then we'll go from there. Those are both great. All right, so now this one there's less to take off than those ones.
This is the reference board.
This is the reference board right here.
The top one.
Yep. So we've marked where the bolt holes from the motor mounts go, right here and here. And we're cutting these steel plates that are going to go in here. And we'll inset them in here. And then we're going one board in, and we'll take these other boards out when we put this on.
Hang on a minute. We haven't talked about the redesign we did since we showed you this design from last week. But after talking with Ned at the wood shop and Michael and Brian DeRuiter, and I talked to them about our lag screws going down into the wood and possibly putting epoxy around them and all that, and they both thought that was not a great idea. And so Ned suggested that we take the sides of the metal plates down the sides of the wood so that we could put actual bolts through horizontally to hold it, and that sounded like a really good idea. And Brian DeRuiter suggested we get rid of those channels that we're carving into the wood to reach the nuts and just weld the nuts to the bottom of those plates, which was also a great idea. Here's the way it works. We're going to put these brackets down that have two sides on them now, and then we will put a piece of wood on either side of those, and that piece of wood on either side is so that we can bevel the wood to allow fiberglass to roll over this motor mount and over those metal brackets as well. The nuts will just be welded on the underside, so when the bolts go down through from the top, if by chance we got a loose bolt or something, by some chance in the motor mount had vibrated on the bolt and mess up the threads, we just unthread that bolt out and thread a new one into the welded on nut down below. And so very simple to fix. And we no longer have to worry about the lag bolts going down into the wood and any of that, because now we've got bolts going through, and that's going to hold this metal plate down, on top, of course, the fact that it's fiberglassed in, so it's going nowhere.
So that's what we're up to. I'm going to cut some more metal. We also have to cut those little side pieces as well. You have that. So this isn't the side it's going to go on, but one board in, this is going to get welded on here so that we have the side tabs and we can bolt all the way through these things for strength. Oh, we're over here with Michael, and he's going to weld up our little brackets that we're going to be glassing into the wood beam. Yesterday we were over at the wood shop. Today we're over at the metal shop. Well, as you just saw earlier, we were over at the DeRuyter's and working in their little machine shop area there and getting these plates made that go for our motor mounts. But on the inside, since this won't be epoxied in here, we're going to go ahead and put some galvanizing compound, cold galv compound on here, just to protect this a little bit inside of here. We spent the last 2 hours measuring the boat and the engine and everything, and we'd like to have dropped the engine literally in there to check this, because that would be the most way to be sure. But we're going to check it 2 different ways right now. Well, 3. We did it all with measurements first, and they just didn't seem to be working out like we expected. So we decided to try a different thing, which is we mocked up the inside of the boat. And we did that by taking a level and adjusting this top of this beam to be a 5-degree tilt, which is exactly what this engine will be when it's in the hull. And then we check what the angle of the hull is inside the boat, because it's going down. No, I'm sorry, other way. It's going this way. The motor mount's coming down, the boat is coming the opposite direction. And that's a 10.3 degree tilt. And so we put this in here and put this at 10.3, so that represents the angle of the hull at the bottom. So we have the angle of the motor mounts and we have the angle of the hull. And that allows us to come over here and see where this bracket is compared to the bottom of the boat. Now the bottom of the boat will be the bottom of this aluminum piece right here. And you can see that there's about 3 centimeters of distance between here and here. Now we only need 1 centimeter according to the plan. So actually between this corner and the bottom of here. We need about 1 centimeter, and that's maybe 2.5 right there. So this is pretty close. So that just means that these are going to just be about 2.5 centimeters lower than what they are right now. And so that gets that all figured out for us. But there were problems like right here's where the electric magnetic decoupler is, but it hangs out slightly lower than this. So because of it's round. And so we had to make sure that there was clearance in the center here for it. So we checked all of those things, and it all makes sense to us now. But we're not done, because once we cut and mount these motor mounts, we're stuck with it. So Brian came up with another way we can check everything, and we're going to do that now, which is we're going to take this bracket off, this whole big gray bracket from Combi. We're going to take the motor mounts off and bring the motor mounts and the bracket and set it into the hull, and we'll put the actually mount the electric motor decoupler, on the front here, and we can actually set this down, and it'll represent the whole engine going down at the low point of it, which is where that decoupler is. And we can see to make sure this is all going to fit before we glass all that stuff together. So that's the plan, and we're going to be going in here and messing with all that next. The next portion of this, which we built these brackets, which you saw us earlier in the video, and we're going to attach these brackets to the motor mounts so that we can get them positioned onto the wood perfectly, because we'll know they fit because they're on here. When we get perfect marks, we have to use a router and notch out the wood to fit this bracket in. So now we have to notch the wood on the sides, so this inserts into that part. Now how are we going to glass this? Well, there's another board that goes here, and we're going to round that corner off and so that we can roll the glass over the top, and then it continues straight here over to the hull. So this straight edge doesn't matter because we can round off the next board. Okay, we got these on here, ready to go, and now we just need to bond it all together tomorrow and start gluing and fiberglassing. It's Saturday, and we've got our buddy Terry over here helping Brian and I today. And today what we're doing is we're gluing the motor mounts. And, well, I should say the blocks for the motor mounts, not specifically the actual motor mounts. But we're going to be gluing the wood. Now, there's still a lot of glassing that's going to happen later, meaning the next day we work. This is just going to glue them in position. And to make sure that everything is perfect for positioning, we're mounting the actual motor mounts to these steel plates right now. And then we're going to put these onto the actual diesel engine, which I'll show you in just a moment, and make sure this is all aligned properly. Once we've tightened this all up so that they fit on the engine well, when we glue these into the boat, we'll actually set the combi brackets on top of this to make sure that the orientation and angle of all of these things is perfect to mount into the holes for these motor mounts. So what we're doing now is we're bolting on the top portion of the wood motor mounts. There's two sections. We don't really show you that, but the top sections are just purely a rectangle, and the bottom sections that mount to the hull have the 5-degree angle on them. When this lands on them, it keeps the 5-degree angle. And these will just be glued together, the two different blocks, and glassed over the tops and on the ends, and ribs coming into the side and tabbed into those, so they ain't going anywhere once we glue it all together. But what we got to get right is all these angles of the motor mounts. So we put them on here so that we can make sure these motor mounts were aligned, tightened them up, and now that they're tightened up, we can take these blocks back off the engine. And we've got our bolts now through the plates. We use our drill press and put those through so they go through the tabs on the sides of the metal brackets and go right through. So those metal brackets are held into the wood. And again, they're going to also be glassed over as well. So by the time we've glassed it all and metal brackets with bolts all the way through, it's going to be very strong. So next up, we're going to glass them. Well, that's not true. Next up, we're going to glue them. We've been gluing all of these different planks with epoxy, a little bit of thickened epoxy. We had to let some soak into the wood and then recoat it again and then put it together. And we didn't show you all of that simply for one very important reason, which was in the very warm temperatures we have, it's gotten up to about 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Even the Sikkim epoxy only give us so long to work, and we were just in a rush. And so we've got this whole block done and set up, and we've also got this one setting up over here. And we still have 2 blocks left that we have to do. So we're just cleaning up right now. This is the surface that's going to bond to the other block, so it has to be nice. So we've got the draining going the other direction, which doesn't matter as much. We can sand it off if we need to. But these are all now glued together. And on Monday, we'll glue the other set of blocks together. Hopefully, it's going to be a little cooler, so that'll give us a little bit more time to work that one. So I'll shoot some of that so that it's not just all talk here. But we just got in so much of a rush with the epoxy setting up that we didn't have time to mess with cameras. And there was epoxy on me everywhere. West System! It's my West System epoxy shirt, and it's by now this shirt is about 50% West System epoxy. So still works. All right, well, we're about going to wrap this up for this Saturday, and I didn't get quite as far as I wanted to get. I'd like to have had this all glued into the boat, but we made progress, and we will continue working on these on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. But I have a plan to hopefully start this bridge deck next week, because I have a problem with our decoupler, and let me show you that. So what I've got laid out here for you to look at is our magnetic decoupler, and the reason I'm looking at this right now is because we need to assemble this to put it on the engine to get the engine out of here into the boat. But we have a problem with this. So what you have here is, this is the gear that has this belt on it that connects up to the electric motor that can drive the shaft that's coming through all these pieces. So this is the engine side, and this is the prop side over here. And then there's just a spacer here, and then you have this keyed insert that goes into the decoupler on this side, and this piece here with a key that goes into the decoupler on this side. And the decoupler splits in half, sort of. It splits apart right here and here. And so we can take it apart, put this one in, and then if you'll notice there's a groove right here. That's for a snap ring, and there's another groove over here for a snap ring on the other side. And so once we split this apart, we can insert this into the one half and put the snap ring on, insert this one into the other half and put the snap ring on, and then push these two pieces of the decoupler back together again. That's all great except for something we discovered, which is that when you measure this, inside of the ring area here, which has to project out, to the collar, which meets up right here, this collar meets there. When you press that all the way against here, this only goes in 53 millimeters or so. But when we measure the inside of this tube, it's almost 70 millimeters. And that means that when this goes in here, it won't come out. So this ring will still be inside the cylinder where it's supposed to come outside so that we can put the snap ring on. So in essence, this piece here is machined incorrectly. This needed to be machined back quite a few millimeters to make it insert far enough to put the snap ring on. So I'm going over all that because of what it does to us. We don't need this right now, but what we do need is to get the engine into the boat, because right now the engine is sitting in the way of us building the bridge deck. And so we need to put that in there, but without this, we can't assemble the whole thing and lower it in all finished, and it'd be murderous to try to assemble that inside the hull. We're going, this is going to take weeks to get this repair to this little collar piece here. So what we're going to do, we don't want to wait weeks, so what we're going to do instead is we're going to building those motor mounts that I showed you this week, and we're going to put the engine on them, and then it'll be out of the way, and we can start building the bridge deck, put all the tables in here, all the way back to there, and we'll get to work on the bridge deck while we're waiting for this piece to come in. Once this piece comes in, we'll take the engine hoist to the other side of the boat and just lift the engine back up into the air, get inside and assemble the electric part and the decoupler, get it all assembled up in the air, and then drop it back down onto its motor mounts again. It's not ideal, but it is possible to do it that way. And since we can do it that way, that means that we can get to work on the bridge deck soon. And so, you know, I don't want to blame Combi here too much. I just want to mention that I asked them if they made one of these decouplers, and they didn't. And they said that they would try to source one for me. And then they came back and said that they have made a decoupler now and that they're going to start offering it as a product. And so I was the first one to get number one. Being number one, the first one, it's not surprising that there was something not right. And, you know, the first time you make anything, it's obviously, you only had one iteration, so you had a chance to test it all, make sure it all works right and everything. So I don't blame them at all for this, and they are going to handle taking care of it, for us. It's just that it's going to be a while to get that fix done because they're in the Netherlands and we're in California. And so because of that time thing, that's why we had to come up with a different plan. So
Well, this signs will be all right.
we'll get back to work on these motor mounts. We'll drop that motor in next week and we'll get started by the end of the week, hopefully on the bridge deck.
We got quite a bit done this week on getting the engine ready for the boat. We didn't get quite as far as we hoped. We hoped to get this thing lowered and installed on the motor mounts, but we made a few design changes along the way, and with the help of our friends, we are moving along and getting ready to get this thing installed next week.
Right. I mean, we had to get over there and do that woodworking with Ned's workshop, and then we had to go over to the DeRuyter's house for their metal working area and weld those redesigned metal plates that we're holding the motor with, and that just took a little extra time for all that stuff. And then there was also just a ton of time we spent quadruple checking everything to make sure that this motor is going to fit, not be too high, too low, and we're talking we only have millimeters here, and of course the angle and all that stuff. So there was just a lot of intricate work there. And so the top section of the wood portions are all gluing together right now and setting up. We already showed you that. And on Monday we'll do the lower sections the same way. And then by Tuesday we'll bond them and glue them into the holes. And by Wednesday we'll glass them in. And then we'll let it set up for a couple of days at least before we want to lower an engine onto them. And so while we're waiting at the end of the week for that to all harden up, we're going to get going on the bridge deck. So that's going to be next week for sure, and at least the start of it. And then we're going to get heavy on it for until that floor of this boat's in. So we'll see you next week for that portion and the start of that bridge deck. But we do want to thank you all for watching this week's video. We do appreciate your time and sharing a little bit of it with the Admiral and myself. And of course, all of our crew and Brian, our XO, and everyone. So thank you again. And thank you to our patrons for all their donations that really do help us keep going on this project. And we really appreciate them.
Yes, we very much appreciate all of you. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell icon to be notified of our next video.
The one where we lower this in here. All right, see you then.
Bye.